Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What is going on? So this week's episode is going to be Diablo IV Beta thoughts, because in part because we both played the open beta this week, but you'd also played the closed beta the week before. But we recorded that before you would have done any of that because I was, of course, in Disney last week. We will talk a little bit about my latest Disneyland trip. And I've also been playing Tchia this week. So that's kind of the topics of the show today. Before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all of that fun stuff. So Cam, kick it off. You have put in far more time into the Diablo IV beta than I have. It's pretty much been what you've been playing the last couple weekends. I hopped in for a couple hours today. We recorded a Let's Play that'll probably be up around the same time as this. As well as we played a little bit afterwards before we were like, hey, we should actually eat because food is a good thing. But so give me your thoughts. I guess maybe give me a beginning of like your history with Diablo feeding into your thoughts on the beta so far.
Sure. So Diablo 1 and 2, my brother borrowed from a friend. And of course, did the classic thing of like old school pirating, sharing the CD key and no, it wasn't, I guess like it technically doesn't count as pirating, or maybe it does if you're just like sharing it with like a friend in the old school method.
I mean, that would still be, yeah.
Yeah, it's still pirating.
It's still pirating.
It's not like today where it's like pirating is like this complex thing of like putting it online, cracking like the code of the game and everything. And so when
it's piracy in the same way that like when my family recorded, VHS copies of an HBO free weekend movie, and we just had three movies on a VHS tape that we would watch over and over again, or with maybe like the first 5 minutes in the weird like blurred thing that they tried to do to prevent people from doing that. It's still piracy.
Yeah.
Just a very, not piracy for sale or something like that.
Yeah. I guess that is the point, is like, and it's not like some strangers giving this to you. It's like something like, I think piracy just used to be so much more personal, like as far as just like, yeah, no, I recorded that and like now I have a copy of it. And it's like, is it piracy? Yeah, but like, it's not like I'm sharing it with the world. And now that's definitely not the case. In fact, like, I don't understand how people even like the amount of work that would take to pirate something always sounds like it's way more work than just buying it. So but granted, I've also been like flat broke and not been able to afford any games and just been like, well, sucks to be me. I don't play that game. So like I get the like if you have a drive for that. Granted, also I do find that what is it somebody explained to me about like they're like, yeah, I plan on playing Hogwarts Legacy, and I'm like, you do? Like what? Like what? And he goes, no, plan on playing it. I don't plan on paying for it. And I'm like, I mean, and they're like, yeah, why don't you just do that? And I was like, because like for just like it's against my moral compass now as an adult.
It's like it's morals. It's illegal.
It's illegal. But then he was like, okay, but who's gonna know? And it's like, I mean, I will.
Yeah.
But also on top of that, it's also we make a big push like with our platforms to be like, hey, don't pirate things. Pay your developers. Like do what we can to like argue for the existence of developers and what like and giving them what they're owed.
Yeah, I mean, like, even in that argument, I fall more on the side of, like, the developers got paid. That was their job. They got paid. It's the publishers who are making the money now, and fuck them.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna fire those developers anyway now that those developers don't have a project to work on. So
there's
like,
that, yeah.
There's a much bigger just industry issue going on there.
It's true.
I mean, the conversation you and I have had about it was like, if I do end up deciding to play Hogwarts Legacy or something like that, it'd be, okay, I'll pick it up from a GameStop where I'm buying a used copy, so no money's going to,
the turf.
The turf, because fuck turfs.
Fuck turfs.
You still also suffer the issue of, well, I don't really want money going to GameStop either, but, so be it. So maybe it'd be from maybe it'd be from like Fallout Games or some other like local used games salesman here.
You know what, though? You could make the argument that buying it from GameStop helps keep Alex Van Aken employed, so maybe.
Sure, yeah. There you go.
Why am I doing it? I'm doing it to help Alex keep his job.
Yeah. Even though, I know his job is in the hands of people who will never care about the amount of money the GameStop actually makes. It all come down to, well, we're going to let people go because we need to cut costs.
Yeah, we have to show
a profit. Yeah.
Show a profit so our stock prices don't drop out, and then we all end up,
Anyway, back to Diablo.
Yeah, back to Diablo.
Because we're also like, it's interesting that we headed down that rabbit hole of conversation, because the bigger, more Diablo related rabbit hole of conversation is, hey, Blizzard still sucks. So
yeah,
like that sucks.
It's true. Normally I have the policy that we don't talk about Blizzard products in regards to our show outside of like I know I said, hey, I'm going to talk about on the show, but I won't platform it. Like I have not tweeted out anything about Diablo. For that particular reason, I don't want to I'm trying hard to find where in this gray area I find myself in it, because, okay, well, how do I, where's my line? My line in the sand is irrevocably, I want them to unionize, and I want them to, I want Bobby Kotick out, but we can't get Bobby Kotick out until, and the reality is that we can't force Bobby out because Bobby is a shitbag who stacked the deck.
Yeah.
We can't, there's no way that we can do it outside of, crime. So that being the case, it's well, the best case scenario in my mind is we have to keep showing that Blizzard is, we have to keep showing that there's interest in these Blizzard properties, that there's a future for the developers in the studios, both, in Blizzard, local itself, as well as the different Activision studios. We need to make sure that they are, there's a point of me, not make sure, sorry. I'm not making these decisions. But my method is I have heard from developers that they don't want boycotting of any of their games. Blizzard, specifically Blizzard developers have said that. I think it's a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. I think if it's indie developers, always support them, always buy their games. That's just because those people usually don't have publishers, or their publisher agreement is basically the publisher is doing very little work and not promoting it at all. So you got to help out what you can. Shout out to 6-1 Indie, by the way, for just being the absolute top of the line, the top of the line product of with their showcase that they just did. It was phenomenal. And the follow-up that they do with their website landing page and everything is just out of this world fantastic. So shout out to them for also championing indie games. But when you talk about these AAA games, or even more precariously, these AA games, these studios that are not big AAA studios that are part of these big publishers, it's emphatic that we look at Blizzard and say, okay, well, what are the people inside Blizzard saying? Well, they want us to keep playing their games, and they want us to keep buying their games because that gives an incentive internally, metrics-wise and numbers-wise, to keep these other projects and future projects alive that give them the longevity necessary to start building the case for things like unions, as well as hopefully we see this buyout happen. I'm not for the ever-growing conglomeration of Microsoft or any other massive corporation, but getting Bobby Kotick the fuck out of video games should be priority number one, in my mind. If you are a fan of Blizzard Activision, if you want to see Blizzard Activision not have to have this goddamn albatross around their neck every single time the developers do something awesome and amazing, there isn't this reminder that, oh yeah, Bobby Kotick's still around. So that's emotionally, that's where I'm coming from on it. Mm-hmm. And so back to Diablo.
Actually, I've already kind of made notes in the doc where I'm okay, I'm gonna have Diablo 4 Beta as the topic one, and then Diablo 4 Beta, really. So let's actually talk about Diablo 4 Beta now.
So yeah, my experience with Diablo is Diablo 1 and 2. I've only ever played once each of them, and it was when I was a kid. Diablo 3 came out, and the whole you always have to be online thing, and Battle.net, and everything that happened at its launch.
I mean the auction
the
house.
Auction house, sorry, yeah, the auction house as well.
And Error 37 or whatever it was.
Yeah, Error 37, the auction house. just about everything that could be wrong with Diablo 3 at its launch was wrong with it.
Yeah. It was the
Yeah.
Activision Blizzardification of Diablo.
Yep. And I think, like, looking back on it, and then I ended up waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally, it was on Diablo 3, like the Ultimate Edition was on sale. And I bought it on PC, and I played through it, and I played as the Necromancer. And I had just such an absolute blast with it, and just thought it was this really incredible game that ended up kind of like, this is post Auction House, this is post issue 30 or Error 37. This is like when it was kind of like at its best. And I really enjoyed what I played out of it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought that I had always been a fan of the lore of Diablo, and when Diablo 3 was coming out, I got super into the lore, and so like, there's a lot about Diablo's history and its lore and its world that make it very fascinating, but at the same time, it's such a base level product that you don't have to know that. You don't have to pay attention to any of that. It's a dungeon crawler. It's literally like an old school mode of video game. You don't need all of that, but if you want it, it's there. And I think that's something that they do that's incredible. At the passing down of Diablo as far as its lore goes, there seems to be a great through line where Diablo 1 and 2 had like a really great through line. 3 kind of carried the torch of it being like, hey, it's been a long time since Diablo 2, but also we're going to make it so it's been a while since the events of the second game, and now we're in the third game. And now I don't even know where it's at in the timeline at this point, how long it's gone further into the future, but it certainly seems to be a world of progress where things are changing and happening. And you're dealing with like the outlier of, and the reality, like, it's interesting. Like, what would it be like if you lived in a world where hell and heaven both exist, but like not in the way that we see it, where like we could like when a person dies, they go to one of these places. It's like, no, these are different planes of existence, and they're fighting an eternal war, and you're caught in the middle. Like, you're the pawns caught in the middle. And so like kind of like the this different look at divine and demonic, and what it means to be human, and what it means to be caught up in forces greater than yourself, and what it means to triumph over it. It's kind of like what's at the core of Diablo's lore, and it's done in such a great way. And then on top of that, the game just rules. The games always rule. Diablo 1 and 2 are fantastic. Like, you could still play them today. They're not as great as, I think Diablo 3 is where it's at its best. I have yet to see Diablo 4 to completion to state that, but I love where Diablo 4 looks like it's going.
Yeah. You didn't touch the Diablo 2 Resurrected at all?
No, because that was during like the height of the whole stuff with Blizzard, and just being like, Blizzard. Yep, not doing that.
Yeah. Just before we dive into like proper beta thoughts, my history is I played 1 and 2 a lot back in the day. Like, those came out when I was, much more of a PC gamer than I am these days, where, console's just my more comfortable place. If we look over behind like our little soundproof foam over here on my gaming collection, I'm sure the Diablo 2 disc is over there somewhere. Because I saw that recently. I looked it up on PSN profiles. I played Diablo 3, the Reaper of Souls edition on what was that, like PS4? Is that? Yeah, it was 2014 is when my first trophies, December 2014 is when my first trophies were popping for that. So I played that. I'm very much, especially with the last one, it was like, okay, I played it through the story. I didn't then stick around and do like endless loot grinds and stuff like that, or let me play it with every other character,
or like the Paragon mode, or like a lot of that.
Like all it, like at some point people were like, yeah, there's seasons in Diablo. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means.
Not only that, but they're competitive seasons too.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like that was insane when I found that out. They're like, yeah, it's like how like they associate a score with how well you do in the game, and it's like, and I'm looking at people doing it, and I'm like, this is insanity. This is pure insanity.
Yeah.
Shout out to those folks though who do that.
Yeah, I similarly did not touch Resurrected when that came back out, and also I didn't touch Diablo Immortal.
I did play a little bit of Diablo Immortal, yeah.
And I like when I was like preparing for my Disney trip, and suddenly everybody's like, "Oh, the beta's out now." I was like, "Oh, that came out of nowhere to me," and then everybody was talking about it while I was basically like everybody was playing it and talking about it while I was either driving out to Disney or at Disney. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm missing it, whatever. I don't typically like, I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't really want to do a ton of beta stuff anyway, because it's like by its very nature, none of that's going to carry over. None of that progress is going to carry over. I did that with Destiny 1 way back in the day. I was like, why did I do this? Like now I have to sit through all of this stuff again when I actually play the game. So I wasn't really planning on hopping into this, but then like the open beta came out this second weekend, and I was like, you've been talking about it, everybody else has been gushing about it enough that I was like, all right, I'll at least download it. And then we sat down and did a let's play for it, and I was like, okay, that was like, it's still it's the Diablo I expected it to be. Like it didn't wow me in any kind of ways. It very much feels like Diablo. Obviously playing it as early as you are in there. I think we got to up to like level 11 or 12 with these characters that we were playing. It's like, we're occasionally getting like a legendary drop or something like that, but it's still like we haven't unlocked everything. All that stuff is still out there. And so I was like, it's fine. It's fun. It's a game that I can very easily see myself hopping in and checking out and playing through, like I did with Reaper of Souls, playing through to completion. I mean, the fact that like now we live together and can hop in. I mean, the fact that like the co-op of this was so much more seamless than freaking Elden Ring that we've been struggling with for the last couple months. It was just a quick, okay, I got your friend code in there, and boom, you're in my party, like from the jump. Basically, first cutscene's done, and boom, we're off together. That like it will be a lot of fun to just play through the game, shooting the shit with you and stuff like that. But I don't like I'm already trying to start weaning myself off of Fortnite so that I'm not succumbing to so many live service things every day. And I don't need like this to be another one. The fact that like when I was looking into, okay, I can just download the beta outright, cool. But I looked at it and it was like, okay, or you can buy like the super premium editions or whatever. And like the top one being like, okay, you get like a season pass included, and like you can jump 20 tier levels or something like that. I was like, oh, none of that sounds fun. Like those sound like the things that I don't like in Destiny and those kinds of things. I'm like, oh, that's I can't, like, I did Marvel's Avengers. I don't want to do that again. It's, I mean, the same reason, like, I like everything that comes out about like, let's kill the Justice League Suicide Squad game. I'm like, nope, didn't want to hop into Gotham Knights last year. I don't need another live servicey kind of thing. And I wish they'd stop really just diving into that rabbit hole. But yeah, like, so we played, I was having fun enough hopping in and kind of like, I will say, like, playing a rogue. And because we were doing like let's play, I wasn't putting a ton of thought into like how am I going to level up this character, because I don't want to take the time to read each of these little skill things, because it just doesn't make the most compelling or interesting thing. So it was pretty much like, okay, I'm just going to level up the things I have, add a new thing eventually. And so I was like, all right, I've got like stabby stab, and then I've got like a flurry stab, and then eventually I got a crossbow flurry crossbow shot. And then I think the last thing I added to my repertoire of attacks after I think we finished recording, I added like a backstab, kind of like a shadow step, I think is the move. So you like just dart behind the enemy and basically do a big critical hit behind them.
I did level up
the roguey attacks that I'm expecting. Those are, like rogue, going back to like the Dragon Age games and stuff like that. Those are kind of the moves I was expecting. So it's Diablo. It's what I expect from Diablo. I'll be curious to see how it changes between now and the final product, or how the product evolves as they make it a live service game that they're going to be committed to seemingly for years ahead. It's in the same way that, like, if I jump back into Reaper of Souls right now, I would probably be very lost in a lot of like the things, or like Destiny 2. I'd be very lost in mechanically how things work and all that stuff. So it'll be a game that I hop in, play through, and then walk away from because I just don't want to get sucked in that way. But you have been sucked
Yes.
in
Yes,
in
I
the
have.
beta. So tell me about your experience.
So I know exactly what you're talking about with that rogue build, because I also built a rogue. In the initial beta, Necromancer wasn't available, and I was like, I'll do rogue, and I leveled the rogue up to level 23. By the end of the beta, finished the storyline of chapter 1 all the way through, which is where the beta ends officially, and I had a blast doing it. Rogue is phenomenal. I did more of a bow build initially, but I did end up picking up some of the stabby stab stuff, including shadow stab.
Yeah. For the sake of people who don't watch our Let's Play, we pretty much played through the prologue. Like the prologue ended, came up with a big splash screen of like, hey, you played the beta, now buy the game. And I was like, all right, we can go ahead and end it there. But then, yeah, you and I did a couple side quests and stuff after that. We didn't really
we did not continue
any more story stuff.
No, we did not. Yeah. Because I know that you wanted to, like, because I know with how you've talked about it before, we're playing a beta, we just have to play it again. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely not going to say, let's go do the rest of the story that's left over, because that'll just be spoiling it for you if you end up deciding to play it. This is definitely, like, I've already, like, so I have a level 23 rogue, a level 16 necromancer, and now a level 12 druid. Yeah. I've played a gambit on a lot of these and gone through them a bunch, and it's been a blast. I think
one more thing, just to praise like their beta, the fact that like we were doing crossplay, I was playing on PS5, you were playing on PC.
Oh yeah,
like that was also a testament of like, good, they get it. Like by the time we were coming in, there was no wait in any kind of like login stuff. It was all just like, yep, you're in. Like no server issues. You got disconnected, I think, once,
but it was also when like it was just after we had done a lot of chugging. Like it had like there'd been a lot of like people on screen, a lot of different. We had been in a group, literally just like a random.
We've done a couple activities.
Activities.
All right, here's a big old wave of enemies.
Big old waves of enemies, and also we had 2 necromancers who both had like maxed out skeletons.
Yeah.
So they had maxed out skeleton warriors. So each of them had 5 additional skeleton warriors, and so there was just a lot of animation being done.
There was also like when I was booting up, at least there was like a warning saying like, "Hey, we're doing some stability stuff, so it may cause your sessions to drop unexpectedly." Yeah. So I was like when you dropped, I was like, "Oh, it was probably just that."
Yep, and it was totally fine. Like it was easy to get back into it. Yeah. Adding it now that they've done they basically. If you have if you played a Blizzard game on the PlayStation Network, you now have an associated Blizzard ID. It was a matter of, I looked at Trevor's Blizzard ID and I said, I don't want to have to type that. And I just gave him mine. And it was super easy.
So you made me type it.
Yep. Yep. You offered before I could say anything. So I was like, I'll go with it. Let's go. Yeah, it was fantastic. I think that the actual like multiplayer experience and crossplay experience was pretty like borderline seamless for a beta. This beta has like, you can tell they have more development to do on this game, both on the back end as well as like sometimes textures just do not load in. And
yeah, your character was in a weird state.
Oh yeah, I was basically so I guess the way the druid model works is when your druid turns into one of its animal forms, it's actually just stretching out your model. They don't replace your model with anything. They stretch out your model to those proportions and then like have you textured over with fur. And I was not textured over with fur, so I was this weird flesh bear made up, but like all the colors and proportions were of my character. If that's how they did it, that is freaking awesome, because the way that your character can swap between, as a druid swaps between your bear form and your regular form, it's seamless. It's so good. It's like instantaneous, and it's so well done and so well built out. It's so good. So that was phenomenal. Then there was, so I loved playing as a rogue, beat the first chapter as a rogue, had a lot of fun with it. Playing through as the necromancer, one thing I will say is that I was a little disappointed by is that in Diablo 3, when you play as the different classes, there is an associated personality with that class and gender. And how they, like an associated voice actor, like a dedicated voice actor, which this game does as well, but dialogue could sometimes be different depending on which character class you were playing. And that wasn't always the case, and sometimes the difference in the dialogue was very, this is a different way to say it, rather than a, like, it was just, it was more generic than I would have liked it to be.
Mhm.
I don't imagine that being a big change. I just think that that's part of the, like, that's just a decision they decided to go with this time around. It lessens the impact, I feel, of playing through with different classes than, like, outside of just gameplay experience, seeing kind of like how different classes interact with the story. And so, like, the lore part, like the lore fan of me is just like, it's a little more disappointing, but that's fine. Hey, we're still playing, like, you're still playing as these different characters, and you're still going through that situation, or going through the story and the quest lines just as normal as everybody else. So it's fine. It's fine. I'm just like, it is.
It's a nice extra thing in, like, I remember when the Borderlands games first started doing that in the pre-sequel, oddly enough, where it was like, that was the first game where your characters were actually like responding to things that like quest givers would say. And it was like, you were all saying the same type of response. Like, you know, so because the quest giver's next line had to make sense regardless of what you said. But it was still like each character, you know, whether it was the Handsome Jack type character or the Claptrap character or the other characters that you had in the pre-sequel, like each of them had their own voice and had their own line to like deliver their own retort. And so it finally like just added this extra fun element instead of your character just being a mute that you could occasionally hear in like audio logs and stuff like that. Finally gave your character a little bit of like their own agency, I guess, in the story. And you're just like, yeah, you very quickly, you know, on a second playthrough realize, okay, they're all still saying like the same type of response, but it's a response in their voice instead of just, you know, the same line said by a different performer or something like that.
Yeah, it's fine. It is a step down from the previous game, but honestly, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like the previous game was a balls to the walls, like all out like Diablo experience, where I feel like and I think part of it is because Immortals came out in between. I feel like Immortals was kind of like a 0.5, like I would call Diablo Immortal like Diablo 3.5. This is definitely the Diablo 4.0 that comes from that 3.5's DNA. There's a lot of stuff in here that is based off of the Diablo Immortal kind of model as far as the worlds go. Once you're out of the prologue, you are in the game proper. You are in a town. You will see people come in through the way state or the waypoint, and they are real players.
Yeah.
We had some, like, by the end of our night, we were seeing some people with like Korean character letters in their names. And not like hey, I'm gonna do this because I'm trying to make my name unique. Like, legitimately, like, just like what is like, there was no like accentuation or stylization to it. It was just the name, whatever the name was, in that language.
Yeah. Given that like my bigger probably relationship to this kind of stuff was like the destinification of it, of like, okay, here's an open world, or I guess now Final Fantasy 14, I also have that as a reference point of, okay, here's like an in-game event of, oh, we stumbled upon it, we're now going to save this enemy, and oh, hey, there's a couple other people here already doing this, and so we're all fighting these waves off together, and we get like our little, you know, miscellaneous orbs or whatever that we can go kind of trade in for random loot. It's like okay, cool, I don't have to, I could still play this as a single player experience, but also if I want to do some of those like kinds of things, I will have some kind of like online atmosphere around it.
Yeah, I think that sorry, I just realized something that I didn't think about. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was double checking something real quick here because I was like, I didn't want to say this out of pocket and it not to be true, but it turns out it is true. So it looks so in previous games you could hire quote unquote hire mercenaries or you'd get followers throughout the quest line that could kind of add context to the story and stuff like that. That is not in this game. The followers that you get kind of like for side quests or the main quest, those are like the temporary followers that you get for that. That's it. There's not going to be like permanent party members for you to like be teaming up with. So that has been kind of like hey, I'm kind of doing more of a like DPS build. I want somebody to take the damage for me. Well, I have my tank follower, so he'll take the damage for me.
Oh, I don't even remember that from
Diablo
games.
3 had those. There's a lot that goes into like there's a big jump between
I would say it's still
4.
possible that you can get those things, but maybe late game.
From what I just
remember those
looked
being
in,
like
yeah.
I don't remember I don't remember those in general, but B, it seems like that'd be a thing of like, okay, maybe once you've reached some point in the story, now you can pay gold to hire, an AI character companion or something. But
Maybe. We'll see. I'm not too hopeful just because Diablo Immortal really did away with that.
I mean, like Diablo Immortal is on a very different financial model.
Yes. But also on top of that, like that's why I think with that leap, that was something they're leaving in the past, which is fine. But once again, we're seeing like the pieces that made Diablo as far as it being interesting as like an RPG, and kind of like their greater RPGification of the original Diablo kind of dungeon crawler model. In like Diablo 2, you finally actually get out and you go around the world to different dungeons and stuff. Diablo 3, you do the same thing, but there's even more in depth, like something in depth to the world. I think like there's definitely still followers. Like we did the quest where we had what's his name with us for part of that, and he was swinging around his pole arm and stuff and helping us out.
Lorath,
yeah, Lorath was like stunning enemies and stuff, and so like they're still there, but it definitely looks like they are quest specific, versus what they used to be. Which is if that's the intent that they want going forward with it, that's fine. But yeah, I'm just curious to see where things are going to go going forward. Also, I think a big part of that is also a good reason to have like those followers was because you would pick up like loot that your class couldn't use.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be like, yeah, but you have a follower who can use it. So if I picked up like great shields or something like that, then I would just give it to my tank to hold on to.
I mean, like even I feel like that was a thing that like Loot 2.0, I remember being a thing with Diablo 3.
Oh, then maybe I wasn't, because I wasn't playing it at the time.
Yeah, like Loot 2.0 was, hey, we're only going to give you loot that like your character can use and free, like, so you're not going to keep getting drops that, are for a completely different class that you don't play. I remember that being like a whole restructuring of the thing because again, going back to like Diablo 3 at launch, they built it with like their original loot model with the idea of like, well, if you get stuff you don't want, you can sell it in the real auction house.
That's true.
And so that was like what they were trying to, build around and account for. And then they basically like had to really like backstep on that. And so they had to completely restructure how they handled the loot system in that game. Yeah. So of the 3 classes you've played so far, do you have a preference, a favorite? How would you rank the rogue, necromancer, and druid?
I just because I didn't get into the level 15 kind of skills and abilities of the druid, it's tougher to say. Because a lot of stuff unlocks at level 15. I would rank it. I'd still probably end up ranking it 3rd rogue, 2nd druid, 1st necromancer. Druid just has a lot of like really cool stuff. And even though I really only ever used 3 abilities in the entire time that we were playing, those 3 abilities were like going from being, okay, I'm going to tank and be a bear and build up my spirit resource. And then after I have full spirit resource, cool, I'm just going to shock everybody with bolts of lightning until it's gone. And then I go back to being a bear. And then I unlock these wolf companions that then would like, I could like target an enemy. And I even mentioned it. I thought it was really awesome that instead of just like doing the running over to the enemy that I've targeted and attacking them, they started running over and then they leap at it. And like, I don't know if they stunned them or what, but like, it was just awesome just to see like that kind of a difference in animation for minions. it was just really, really cool. And I was really looking forward to seeing kind of more of it. I don't know if I would say Druid beats Necromancer for me. I was a big fan of the Necromancer in 2 and 3. That's my main go-to class. It is my favorite lore based, my favorite lore is based around Necromancers in the Diablo universe. It's kind of like my go-to for my favorite thing. And because of that, I still think Necromancer is number one. They've diversified and they've actually made Necromancer, I think, be better from what I played. In that they're like, hey, if you want to put more focus in just a couple of abilities, do that rather than unlocking all these abilities, and then you only end up using 3 of them anyway. Also, Corpse Explosion is still like the best goddamn thing on the planet. Just like when you have waves of enemies, and it's like, cool. I have you now surrounded by a bunch of corpses, and I'm going to go ahead and set them all off as bombs. And it's just the best.
When you were telling me about that last night when we were driving out to the show, I was like, I really need to get Cam and we need to play Nobody Saves the World, because there's like a Necromancer class in that as well, where you basically can like raise people from the dead, and when their health drops, they'll explode. Or if you equip that like perk or something like that.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Making bodies explode is like the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I love that. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not going to do the bone spikes this time because I have the bone spear. So I was basically like, as a Necromancer, I had my left click was this giant scythe that would just swipe out and hit a bunch of enemies and give me essence, which is like the essence of life, which is the Necromancer pool for their magic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically your MP as a Necromancer. And that would help me build up essence as I was like hitting as many enemies as possible with my scythe. And then I would launch these just like massive bone spears that would just like take out enemies like nobody's business. And then I would of course like raise them, and actually they did something really cool where if you have a max amount of skeletons that you can have out, like you're at your max number, you can actually still use your raise skeleton, like raise minion ability, but it produces a priest, like a skeleton priest that buffs and heals your skeletons. And so you're like, oh, my guys are getting weak. Well, instead of wasting the time for you to develop like and pop up a new guy, how about you just heal them real quick? Or how about you just buff them up real quick? And I just think that that's just so sick. Just such a great little tweak to make to the ability to make it viable no matter what. Yeah, it's awesome. I also love the ability that the Book of the Dead, which is their class-based ability, you unlock at 15. You unlock it at level 10. You can actually start doing customizations where it's like, hey, if I don't actually want to be a minion Necromancer, I just want to be using cool Necromancer abilities, and not worry about minion management. Cool, you can actually do that, and you can actually choose specifically to get buffed instead of summoning. And so you don't have to worry about that. You have permanent buffs on you instead to beef you up. And I'm like, that is such a great way of balancing that out if you want to do a different kind of Necromancer build.
In your more advanced play and the extra time you put in with it, does the game at some point allow you to respec?
Yes. However, I never did.
Okay.
So I don't know the details about it, but I know you were able to respec up to a certain level. I'm not sure what level you had to be before you had like it'd stop you from respecing, but there was a way of doing that.
Okay. Because I mean, like, yeah, one of the most direct corollaries that I had for this game really was like Borderlands, in terms of like leveling up skills and stuff, and regardless of what you dump those points into, you'll unlock the next layer, next tier of points after X number of upgrades and stuff like that. And in that, it was okay. Yep, you can pay what was it, like some of the purple currency or whatever to respec at some point, and you basically, it wipes out all your points and you can respec completely if you want. And so it seems like you'd probably be able to do something like that, especially because that's what I would prefer. Like, we got into a little bit of the transmog stuff. I would always prefer being able to respec my skills, that now, rather than have to like completely restart a character just so I can figure out what base attacks or what little core abilities I want, without wasting like all of the points that I already put into other things. So how does the demo kind of fall into like your excitement for the game? Is it is it going to be a pre-order? Is it going to be a, buy it as soon as you can after launch kind of thing?
I'm definitely gonna be playing this game this year. I just don't think there's a way of getting around it. It's one of my favorite. Here's the thing. I'm a Blizzard, like no joke. I am a massive fan of Blizzard properties.
Mhm.
I might have waned on Warcraft, but that was after years and like the first 22 years of my life, I was a massive Warcraft fan. Not the case anymore, but that's just because they've gone in places where I just don't think I'm interested in going with it. And then, of course, Warcraft 3 Remastered, or Reforged as they called it, came out, and it came out during a time of really not great time for being for Blizzard, but also came out being kind of like garbage. So I'm not big on the revisiting the remastered versions of Blizzard games. They don't tend to go well.
It's interesting, because obviously, yeah, we talked, especially back when we were doing that News You Care About as a podcast and talking about video game news with more regularity, and like every other episode was Activision Blizzard sucks and Bobby Kotick's a piece of shit. It was very much like I don't really care about any, I would go through and look at Activision Blizzard franchise and be like, I don't really play any of these games. I'm never playing Call of Duty the way that Logan does, or and yeah, the Overwatch, Warcraft, those just didn't really draw me. And so Diablo 4 is really probably the first, or Tony Hawk, for Frank, and stuff like that. This was really the first one where I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I might hop into this. I'm certainly more interested in hopping into it now. It's very much I could also take it or leave it. I know exactly the experience I feel like I'm going to get with Diablo. And it just comes down to am I in the mood for that kind of click, endless clicker, looter, hack and slash, that whole chase. And it's for me, it is a very mindless kind of game. It's a game that I can play. I don't really need to pay attention to the story, because as much as you might like the lore, at the end of the day, it's about taking out demons and stuff. I get it.
Yep.
I don't need it's not.
You don't need to know why these demons are different.
Yeah,
you're just taking out demons. Yeah,
I'm fighting demons. I'm fighting wargs. I'm fighting spirits. I'm fighting tree people and werewolves and whatever else. I'm fighting anything that's attacking me. And many of them, there might be a deeper reason as to why they're attacking me, but it's all about just clicking until things die or the numbers go up, and it's that kind of endorphin fuel, and if I'm in a place where that's what I'm looking for, cool, I'll hop in, play that, enjoy that for a while, and then the next story thing that will actually be a narrative driven thing that will probably grab me. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall with it. I mean, just based on the 2 weekends alone, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this ends up on your game of the year list.
Yeah.
We'll see, how it ends up faring on mine compared to the other things that come out later this year and stuff like that. But it's also when we did our, looking ahead to the year of games, I was like, there isn't a lot for me until April, May. But the handful of new games that I've played this year, it's all right, I've checked out a little bit of Octopath Traveler 2. I've checked out some Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy, but haven't put a ton of time into new things, because there just hasn't been a ton grabbing me. So, we've spent a lot of this year so far playing Elden Ring, or I replayed Breath of the Wild, and it'll be interesting to see just how the rest of this year ends up shaking out. Any final thoughts on Diablo before we move on?
Oh yeah, but to answer kind of your question, it's not a pre-order for me. I just don't believe in pre-ordering games these days, especially this early before launch.
Unless it's a Kickstarter.
Yeah, unless it's a Kickstarter. But even then, that's rare. And I haven't done that in many years.
Yeah, but one of yours is coming out this year.
It is.
Ayden Chronicles. Well, mine is coming out this year too. Sea of Stars.
There we go. It's a good time to be a Kickstarter backer. The games are coming out.
Finally, the games we backed back before the pandemic are finally coming out.
That is wild. um, because you think about it, it's like, oh, it really, like, it's been a couple of years, and it's like, but it feels like it's been so much longer. Yeah, no, I will say that it's definitely a buy for me, probably around launch. But I might wait a week or two to let kind of the
Like let the
yeah
servers settle.
yeah
Yeah.
Because I waited a day to launch, like get into the beta last weekend, and it paid off big time because I didn't have to worry about long wait times.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it's but it's probably going to be a definite buy for me. I'm definitely gonna be hopping into it later this year. So
All right. Well, moving on from Diablo, sticking in the DE territory, I will talk a little bit about my Disneyland trip. That I spent a good chunk of the last week in Disneyland, celebrating my birthday. I drove out on Saturday, was there at Disneyland on my birthday for Sunday, and then stayed a few extra days. It was one of the more interesting Disney trips I've had recently because it was very rainy in California, and Disneyland not really built for the rain. Like, even though it was just a light drizzle, my first night there, Fantasmic was getting canceled. Parades were getting canceled. Lots of rides were breaking down more frequently, and just did not cope with the rain very well. But it was still overall a pretty fun trip. I had a good time. I like the on my birthday, the first day I was there, Toontown reopened. Well, technically, like they had like a soft reopening the day before, but like the official reopening of Toontown was the 19th. So that was fun. Got to go check that out and see just kind of the new vibes of Toontown. It's very much they've thrown a lot more of like hey, we're going to throw some like AstroTurf parks kind of down,
mhm.
so that like parents and kids can have like little family time and little picnics. The big new ride there in Toontown is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which originally launched in Disney World out in Florida, and so they finally brought it out here. And the whole like the story of that ride is you are going to see a premiere of a new Mickey and Minnie cartoon
Mhm.
called Mickey and Minnie's Perfect Picnic, and they're going out and singing out and having a big old picnic, and so that a lot of like the theming around Toontown is now kind of built around that picnic style. They have like a fun new soundtrack of just being in Toontown that I actually ended up picking up because it's available out like on Amazon and probably Spotify and stuff like that. It's like tunes from or music from Mickey's Toontown, I think is what it's called. And you had like the first one I caught that was like, oh hell yeah, was a like a little acoustic Eye to Eye from Goofy Movie. They had like some fun DuckTales version. And it's just like a fun like background music. So I sat down on a bench at some point and was just kind of like enjoying the vibes of Toontown while I rested my feet a little bit. The one of the other big things like my takeaway this time around that I told you about is I found a like Disney hack where
This actually is really cool.
this was a fun little Disney hack that I discovered. So I had the Magic Band Plus and I had like Genie Plus for my days, and I found out if you have a like a lightning lane for a ride like Indiana Jones, for example, and the ride goes down, they give you basically an all access for any ride this tier or lower. Go ahead and use it anywhere in the park. Sorry, your ride was down on your like return time. And so once you've got that like in your queue, you can like rebook Indiana Jones for later in the day or something like that. And then when the ride opens up, you go and just like tap your Magic Band to like the sensor. It doesn't pull your all access thing, even if your Indiana Jones thing is like 3 hours later, it pulls your Indiana Jones and basically lets you on the ride right there. So you kind of like bypass the like long delay that you might have to wait, and then you can immediately make your next lightning lane request. So I did a ton of that of like, all right, I'm gonna use all of like the very like the ones that are so popular that they're like later in the day, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I did like Indiana Jones, I did Space Mountain. Splash Mountain, weirdly not too popular, even though it's going away. People didn't want to ride it in the rain, so you pretty much get on that ride anytime. But it was I basically just like burned through it, and I think like my first day there, using that kind of like Disney hack, went on like probably 14, 15 rides, and then like finally, like end of the night, I was like, all right, since you could only use a lightning lane, you can only do a lightning lane once per ride. I finally burned through those, like the extra one that I had, the all access one. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back on Indiana Jones now, and so got to enjoy that again. And then the added little trick to that, if it is a rainy day and rides are probably going to go down with some regularity. The next day I like booked a pass on the Incredicoaster when it was temporarily down. I just was like, all right, I'm going to reserve a lightning lane. And then immediately the app's like, hey, we updated your lightning lane for the Incredicoaster because the thing was down. Sorry. So here's your all access pass for Incredicoaster and rides of that tier kind of thing. So I got to basically do that again on day 2 as well. So it was just a fun little like exploit, maybe. Like it definitely doesn't feel like the system should be doing that, but I was happy to take advantage of that little thing as soon as I found it. I got to go on Smuggler's Run, and I got to fly the Millennium Falcon, which is a rare thing when I do my solo trips, because especially if I'm doing like single rider, I'm almost always just thrown in as an engineer to like fill out a party. And even when I'm like, I want to either do the standby lane or like do a lightning lane for it, I still often end up getting thrown into like, maybe I'll be a gunner, but it's very rare I'm like the first in line to get to fly the thing. But I got to fly the Millennium Falcon on my birthday and take her to hyperspace, so I was like, yay.
That was so awesome for you.
Yeah, it was a fun little boost. And then the other big thing I did was I picked up my third lightsaber. This time I went full Sith, and I had a fun little time kind of creating the story leading up to me turning Sith over the course of my trip, starting with when Phantasmic got canceled that first night, because I had like a dining package that got me like good seats for Phantasmic that would have gone to waste if not for the really cool people the next night when Phantasmic didn't get canceled. And I basically was like, hey, here's a picture. I obviously don't have the ticket anymore because I handed it in when I got my seats and stuff, but I had, Phantasmic tickets for last night. Is there any way I can like, make good? And the people kind of in the line were like, yeah, you're good. Fine. Go ahead. Sit down. Thank you. And I was like, yay. But I created this like social media story of like, my villain origin story, Phantasmic getting canceled on my birthday, boo. And then like day 2, when even though I'm doing the kind of like cheesing the system and getting on a whole bunch of rides, I also sat down to ride the Midway Mania ride, and as I sat down they shut the ride down and had to like evacuate the line. So I ended up getting at its peak I had 3 of those like all access pass lightning lanes just sitting in my app waiting to be used, because a whole bunch of stuff was getting canceled. Again, it wasn't like a hard rain, it was just a light drizzle, but a like on and off, on again, off again light drizzle that kept a lot of rides from fully functioning while I was there. And so like that was part 2, and then finally I went and got my my lightsaber, and I also was worried when I got my lightsaber, because photographers also go away when it's raining. And I was like, damn it, I booked the lightsaber for the evening time so I could go take, cool pictures in front of the Falcon again. And fortunately the sun came out, or well, not the sun came out because it was 8:30 at night, but the rain stopped long enough for me to get some cool pictures after I got my lightsaber. So now I've got my original purple. Then my second, my original purple was the like classic Old Republic lightsaber. Then I got my modern Jedi blue/yellow because I bought that yellow kyber crystal. Now I got the red Sith, and at some point I need to just fill out my collection with the elemental and go green. I also picked up a couple holocrons, which eventually, like, they're up above on I can
Yeah, go ahead.
pop the camera. There they go. There's the holocrons up there above my head. So those are here now on the set. So yeah, it was a fun little treating myself to one more little Disney birthday trip. Yeah, had a fun little time out there. How were things while I was out there, Cam? How'd you hold down the fort here?
I worked a lot.
You worked a lot. Yeah, that's right.
Since I didn't have your judgment of me coming home after 6 p.m. I came home after 6 p.m. just about every day.
Oh, God damn it.
No, not really. I'm joking.
You played a lot of Diablo IV Beta.
I played a lot of Diablo IV Beta. Yeah, I was like, I told you, I was like, yeah, I think I'll be done with Jedi Fallen Order by the time you get back. And then I was like, or
Diablo 4
Diablo 4 Beta.
Yeah.
And I hopped into that. Turns out you don't need to actually eat or not even eat. You don't have to order the double down. You can actually get like just a regular chicken sandwich from KFC, which also not great. Stick to the buckets, folks. That's pretty much it. I will say about that. Because there's not like it was a bad chicken sandwich. It's hard to have a bad chicken sandwich, but just like not anything special. Went right home about it. And it was supposed to be one of their better ones. Just saying, KFC, stick to the buckets. Or actually, man, go back to those bowls they used to have with the mashed potatoes and the popcorn chicken on top with the cheese and everything. Man. All right. Back on topic though. Yeah. And then I ended up playing, actually, I should say I played a ton of Jedi Fallen Order. I think I recorded like 6 episodes of the Let's Play series. So yeah.
There we go. Cool. Well, the last little thing I want to chat about is Tchia, which also came out this last week.
Tell me about it, because I see it everywhere, but I haven't really found anything about a deep dive into it.
Yeah, so Tchia, it was first shown off in like one of those very early PS5 showcases, and is a cool. It is very much a Breath of the Wild like game. I saw somebody basically comparing it to Breath of the Wild and like GTA almost. I don't see the GTA so much as maybe like Prey, where you can like mimic into like other objects and stuff. The hook of Tchia, first, it's a cool like story about basically a Polynesian culture.
Ooh.
New Caledonia, I believe. It is very heavily inspired by like that culture and mythology and lore.
Okay.
Around that. The game actually starts with like a little 5-page like summary of like, here's what this game's about, and here's our inspirations and stuff like that. The names have changed and all that stuff, but here's like the myth that this is built around, and the characters speak in that language or the language of that culture, which is like French and some other.
Is it French Creole?
No, not French Creole. No. At least I don't think so. I mean, it's French.
It might be French.
Something else.
It might be French Polynesian.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually a language. I shouldn't have said that.
It says in the little like intro, it's like French and something. I just don't remember what it was. But it's so you play this girl Tchia, who like the game starts much like the Breath of the Wild. You're kind of on your own little island. It gets the tutorial stuff, and then the story starts kicking off, and your father basically gets like taken by seemingly this like military like military leader kind of, or military lieutenant, kind of gets taken to like the main island area around you, and you kind of like uncover this secret ability that you didn't know you had, where you can basically like soul warp into objects. So basically you can like hold down the L2 button, I think, and various objects around the world will light up, and you can warp into a coconut, or you can warp into a bird. And each object has different things you can do with it. Like if you're a bird, you can fly around. and you can poop on things. There are like little encampment things with like these weird ribbon enemies, which again plays into kind of the mythology and the folklore of the story. Um, and like the challenge in each of those is to basically burn the ribbon people, and there will be a lot of lamps or little gas cans around that you can warp into, and you can trigger to ignite those. And so, like after a couple seconds, the can will blow up. You will shoot back out of the thing, and you will have burnt the ribbon person, kind of thing.
That's awesome. By the way, it's Drehu is the language they speak there. That's the native language. So it's French and Drehu is apparently what they speak.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, there's you can dive into the water. You get like one of the first things you get is a hang glider. You have a limited inventory in that basically you have a little backpack that you carry around with you, and you can pick up items around the world, but you can basically only be holding like 8 things at a time. And some of those things are like, you'll do a challenge and you'll get a gold trophy for this challenge. And it's not like a gold trophy that gets added to a thing. It's a gold trophy that gets added to your backpack.
What?
And then you can use the trophies. There are like little claw machines around the world. And you use like the trophies are like payment for the claw machine. You basically dump a trophy and you get 3 plays of the claw machine. The claw machines have a whole bunch of balls where either you can get like a regular ball that is another trophy, so you can basically get a few more plays, or there are golden balls in the claw machine that unlock like character customization things. There's a lot of like fun to be had, and a lot of like the things you find around the island are just like different elements of character customization, different shirts, dresses, hairstyles. Eventually you unlock like face paint, and you can throw face paint on dresses, headbands. Like, yeah, there's just a whole bunch of like different things you can deck out your character with. And then there's also like a fun little, like, there's a lot of music in the game as well. Like one of the things that you get before your dad kind of gets like taken away from you is you get like a little ukulele, and there will be like mini games that are akin to playing the guitar in Last of Us Part 2, where it's going to be like a wheel, and the buttons will come down and prompt you, and the game is very much like hey, don't stress about it, it's music, it's supposed to be fun, but at the same time they also will tell you at the end of the thing, hey, here's how well you did, you got 92% of the thing. But you're also very much encouraged, if you want to, just like tap the L3 stick and like it'll trigger an auto play and the music will play. And I've done that a few times just because it's very hard to. No, it's not that I don't play the ukulele. It's that some of the songs are like it. You're basically going like boom, 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 and you're having to do like very quick, like all around the wheel of the thing to try and like keep up with the song. But it's also, when they're singing in French, or was it Drehu that you said? So they're singing in like that, in the language, and if I can't read the subtitles of like what the song's about if I'm having to so heavily focus on trying to like play the song mini game. So sometimes it is fun to just be like, I want to just enjoy the song, so I'm going to tap L3 and see kind of the vibes that they're having. And there's like a lot of fun little like song mini games. There are other little challenges where there's like, you build little cairns to unlock new song abilities. Because one of the things, like, among the powers of your ukulele, I haven't really done this a ton, but like the ukulele also is kind of like the ocarina in Ocarina of Time, or the flute in Ghost of Tsushima, where like you can control what time of day it is if you play a certain song, or as you do more cairn puzzles, you can like unlock new songs, including like summon animals so that you can like soul warp into those animals and do things. And then on the broader scale of things, a lot of the game is so far, at least, I'm 5-6 chapters in now, I don't know how many, but there's right up front, there's this culture introduced of if you want to be a hospitable guest, so you provide I think it's Cotume, Coutume, I believe is the word. It's basically like you create a tray of like a gift, an offering to your host as a thank you for, inviting me into your home or inviting me into your village or something like that. And so a lot of the game ends up being kind of go and collect the items you need for that offering to get to the next place that you're trying to get to or something like that. And yeah, it's definitely a fun little like low stress kind of thing. It has similar to Breath of the Wild. Like you have a stamina wheel is pretty much your main thing. There's not really like a health bar. It's pretty much if you run out of stamina, and hits from baddies will take out your stamina a lot. If you run out of stamina, you just wake up at like whatever the nearest campfire is that you've unlocked. But like stamina of climbing or gliding down drain stamina, but you can pick up like you can buy or you can find fruit around the island that increases your stamina count. I think you start with like a stamina of 20. I have a stamina of like 50 something, I think, at this point. Like each fruit you eat goes up by 1. Or there are some like big stamina fruits that I think increase it by like 3 or 5 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, there's some other like miscellaneous little puzzles and things like that. There was like one little challenge that I've done a couple times is that unlocks as part of like the main quest line is you'll be given like a block of wood, and you basically carve like a little totem, and you're carving like certain chunks of the wood. Like it'll be a block of wood, and then there'll be like a bottom chunk that you carve. And once you carve that bottom chunk, it becomes like a mouth and with teeth. And you need to have the totem match a certain look, or like a certain totem is requested. And so you might need to like knock out, the left 4 teeth to make it match what it needs to look like. And there's this, it does the same for like the eyes, the nose, the eyebrows, and then there's like little like lines on the face that you might need to like knock out. And kind of, so basically it's like a little puzzle of like, okay, make your totem match the image so that you can unlock this totem shrine area, which will increase your soul power, so you can be in birds or trash or like gas cans,
Gas cans, gotcha.
Or bikes or what, like, so you can be in the soul and soul item longer, and kind of like leveling up that ability. Yeah,
it's wild that sorry, I just realized something.
Yeah.
Okay, nope. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Mic muted for way too long.
No, I don't think so. I think we're good as far as that goes. I was like real worried for a second because it's like long periods of like silence. I was muted. I think for the last time I said, "Oh, that's," every time I've been like, "Oh, that's interesting," or like making minor commentary to accentuate like, "Oh, I do find this interesting," and I'm piquing my interest on it.
Don't even like, you shouldn't even be muting your mic for this. Bad Cameron.
Yeah, bad me. I'm not mute. Like the mute button is off.
We learned that on Elden Ring.
Yes, we did. Yeah, no, my bad. I got real, like I like pit in my stomach for like a hot second there. Yes, no, I'm curious. So like, what's the thing? Like, so inanimate objects, like I get it, the idea of like trees or plants or like, but like full on like gas cans, I think is the thing that like catches me off guard.
So some of the items like gas cans, lamps are explosive. So like if you're a bird, the thing you can do is fly and poop, and like the action button is poop. And if you're a gas can, you can ignite, and it will kind of spark on fire for a little bit and then explode to take out enemies or to break a cave wall, so you can kind of find a little hidden secret and stuff like that. So
yeah, I guess it's soul jumping or whatever.
Yeah.
Soul jumping, and I'm just like, okay.
Yes, the gas can soul.
If the gas can has a soul, then by igniting it and blowing it up, are you not?
Oh yeah, you're murdering a whole bunch of gas cans. There's also like the big thing that I use the gas cans to explode are the around the island. One of the other like collectible-esque things is statues of the like dictator kind of big bad of the game, that are like, hey, this is an oppressive thing, so break it. Please blow this up. Please like destroy these things. Um, so that's like, yeah, and the gas cans are interesting because like the gas cans are a thing you can pick up, and so you pick it up, drop it in your inventory, and then like when you go to one of those places, okay, now I can pop that out, drop it, jump into it, and then like let it explode. I mean, yeah, the first thing you jump into in a cutscene is like a machete of the bad guy who's taking your dad, and that's how you like discover you have this power. Is you like
You possess the machete?
you possess the machete, make it jump out of the guy's hand, and slice the guy's like face.
Okay, that's badass. Okay.
And
I was going to say, like, she possesses it and then it murders her dad? That's wild.
no.
No. Okay.
No. And so, yeah, it's, I mean, yeah. And then the other, like, the next thing that you're, like, the tutorial, like, once you are able to control that power is, hey, jump into this coconut and then, like, use it to, like, when you jump out of a thing, you can basically, like, aim the trajectory that the thing is going to go. So, and then, so basically it's like, okay, you've jumped into this coconut, now shoot it so that it knocks out, knocks this tower of cans over or something like that. And it's like a lot of it, I don't find myself jumping into things unless I'm like using them for a very practical purpose of blowing up, the baddies of an encampment or something like that. Like I'm not typically just jumping into a coconut so I can roll across the world faster or something like that. There have been a couple times where I'm like, okay, I want to try and get up to that high thing. I don't think I have high enough stamina, so I'm going to jump into a bird so I can just fly to the top of it and then jump out of the bird once I'm up there. And then, yeah, like I said, there's a glider feature a la Breath of the Wild that you get pretty much early on, that, also helps for some of those things. And so, yeah, it's definitely a cute and quirky little game. I didn't like Stray last year, but it very much feels like it fits that kind of Stray mold.
I see. Okay.
It's an indie game that PlayStation like sees something in and really got behind. And it has a I really like the exposure to a different culture and the messages of that culture and kind of the characters and even like the relationships that like Tchia is making around the island and the new people she's meeting and stuff like that. It's just there's like a cool little chill vibe to it. It's not and like the game has a lot of cool accessibility things of like, hey, if you want to skip this like gameplay sequence, go into the option menu and push and choose that option and it'll probably just carry you forward in the story. And so yeah, there's a lot of cool little just cool vibes, cool island vibes. Yeah. You like there are a couple forms of currency that you find around the world. In addition to the trophies that you can use for claw machines, there are hand woven trinkets that you'll find scattered around that are like just kind of like a collectible that you can use to unlock cosmetics alongside pearls that you can go like diving for. Oh, and it also has the Breath of the Wild or Ubisoft kind of trademark points of like view, points of interest that you go climb up to a thing and you shout and basically use like sonar to you go to the top of the thing and your dad, it's a cute little scene that your dad does for the very first one of like he shouts and you see like the sound waves go out, and that's how you like uncover the map, or identify the items around that area on the map. You just kind of go up there and have like a fun little shout from the top of your tall peak, and then also the map isn't like it's not a like, oh, I can pinpoint exactly where I am on the map. It's just like a paper map that Tchia has, and like you can push a button that's basically like show me whereabouts I am, and it'll kind of like zoom into that part of the map. But like you have to kind of use the map and your own like sense of direction. You get a compass, so if you really want, you can like put a pin in the map and just kind of like follow that on the compass, because that will like show up and basically point you to exactly where you need to go. But yeah, it's just a lot of cool little ideas, and I'm really enjoying it. It's especially a fun kind of counterpoint to all of the recent time I put in with Breath of the Wild, because it's very much like it's a even more low key and like chill Breath of the Wild, and yeah, I'm having a fun time with it.
I'm glad. Yeah, no, I'm super glad you're having fun with it because it sounds very interesting in a way that like it's like yeah, that sounds fun, but at the same time, it also sounds like it's not especially my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I might have a completely different opinion about it. This is kind of like the dichotomy I kind of get when it comes to like, especially a lot of like correct me if this wrong. This is an indie game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I reach this dichotomy with indie games where part of me is like, I can find indie games that I fall super in love with, that I'm obsessed with. And then I will find myself with these games that I feel like on paper, like this all sounds amazing and I want to get into it. But then I actually like looking at it and thinking about how I want to approach that game. I come into conflict where it's like it's just not really my style. Or a lot of the vibe about Stray with that kind of like cyberpunk world sounded really, really cool to me. But when it actually came to the idea of like, oh well, you play as a cat, and I'm like, okay, not like that just doesn't sound interesting to me. This is kind of I don't know if it's the flip of that. Like, it's certainly not the opposite, because this world sounds like it's pretty fascinating, but I don't know if it's just maybe I'm just like not in the right place for a game like this right now. I think that's probably it. I just don't like between like.
Oh, I would definitely say this is like the anti-Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's like action adventure, but like incredibly low stakes. Or not incredibly low stakes, like incredibly low gameplay stakes. Like,
yeah,
if you do die, you just kind of wake up at a nearby campfire. It's not a game about going around hacking your enemies or anything like that. It's like you are a little girl traipsing around an island, occasionally getting on a boat and kind of like, sailing around between islands, because there are a couple major islands in the thing. And then, yeah, like solving light puzzles by hopping into, other creatures and stuff like that. Even that is like an element that I haven't like, it's an interesting enough element. But I feel like the game hasn't used it to its like full potential yet, of exploring the breadth of things you can do, hopping into these other items or creatures and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm having a fun enough time with it. It is one of
awesome.
and it's a PlayStation Plus extra, maybe premium. It's one of those, like, if you have like one of the higher tiers of PlayStation Plus, it's included. So yeah, go check it out. Cute and charming art style too, as well. I very much enjoy that, and the look and feel of the game. Definitely an indie feel, but still like fun animation style behind it.
Yeah, I'm on the page right now for it, and I'm just like looking at it, and I'm like, there's something about this that just like does not. I don't know if it says that it doesn't appeal to me, but there's something about this that is making me want to hop into it right away. I think that's probably the thing. It's not that I think it's bad, or it's not that I think I wouldn't enjoy the game. There's just nothing about it. I get compelling. There's nothing compelling me to want to jump into this game. And I honestly, it's not this game's fault. I felt that way for a lot of games recently. I'm in a very weird place right now, game wise. Like what I want to do with my free time and how I want to use my free time. And games are kind of like they are a priority for me because I love games and I want to make them a priority. But they are also not the highest priority for me. There's other stuff going on, and also like we have a lot of stuff going on in our lives. As far as like the site stuff, like. Granted, we did have to pack a lot of making a lot of content into a short period because you were going to be gone for like a week.
Yeah.
And that's probably playing into it a little bit now that I think about it. But I've also just like tomorrow is the last day of like the busy quote unquote week that I have. Like I've had a lot of back-to-back, a lot of busy weeks. I've done a lot of like catching up because it's also I'm ending my quarter. Like there's a lot going on right now, professionally and personally. And so Like, yeah, this is a kind of game where it's like I don't think I feel
You're
like I don't have the time to get lost in this
yeah,
world.
I mean, you're falling back on comfort stuff.
Hmm.
Be it Elden Ring, Diablo, Jedi Fallen Order, which though you've never played it before, is a comfort of a Soulsborne type game.
Sure, I like don't get me wrong. Like, I'm also playing a lot of Loop Hero.
Yeah,
Like trying to beat that finally. Yeah, no, I am reaching into some of like these more comfort picks for me.
yeah.
That are like I love. I think that are great, but in this game, I think I don't. It's just there's nothing compelling me right now. I wonder if there is a time and place where this would have been more compelling for me. But I also don't think that it's a knock against the game itself because it sounds like you've really found yourself like digging it. Like it sounds like it's got a vibe. Like you are on its vibe right now.
Yeah, it was very much a it was a game that I had my eye on for a long enough time in the lead up to it that like when it came out, and basically when I got back from Disney because it was out, it released while I was away. One of the first things I did was basically hop in and like record a let's play for it, and then yeah, I've basically just enjoyed a lot of my free time the last couple days, continuing to just kind of like vibe with the game while catching up on some podcasts or some other things I missed. Which is also like even that's like a struggle where I was playing a lot of it today, and I would have a video going, and then it'd jump into a cutscene, and because I don't speak the language and have to like focus on the subtitles, I have to like pause the video that I was watching so I could focus on the story stuff and then kind of switch back. But yeah, like when I'm just wandering around the world finding the next stamina fruit to power up my character a little bit, or going out and collecting pearls and doing stuff like that, it's a great podcast game kind of thing, just like Breath of the Wild. If you're doing shrines and Korok seeds and stuff like that, it's very much those kinds of vibes, and yeah, with a cute little protagonist at its core. So shout out to Tchia. I think that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to chat Diablo Beta, Disneyland, and Tchia. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I do. Quick shout out to former member of the site, Ben Bellevue. He just helped Dead Meat, right? Yeah, Dead Meat. They did the Dead Meat Horror Awards just I think today, and they went very well, and I wish, of course we always wish him the best, but also massive shout out to him kind of like on this new part of his career as he's going forward and absolutely killing it. We love to see it.
There you go. Yeah. Yes, Dead Meat Horror Awards. Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will give a shout out to our ongoing Let's Play series of Elden Ring on Tuesdays, Jedi Fallen Order Wednesdays, and Breath of the Wild on Thursdays, as well as the random stray miscellaneous ones like the Tchia one I did that had up this last weekend, or the Diablo IV Beta that Let's Play that is probably up on the site now. Go check out all that fun stuff. Or if you want to see pictures from my Disney trip, go check out my Twitter or my Instagram, Trevor J. Starkey. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.